Ravens 34, Texans 10. I mean, come on. Was anybody expecting it to be that bad?
No.
The Ravens winning was not a surprise.
Right.
I expected something around 28-17, 28-21.
Right.
But Baltimore showed what they really are.
Right.
That front seven, that is championship football.
Yes,
it is.
Absolutely.
Great play in the trenches on both sides of the ball. They took it to Houston. Great linebacker play.
Yep.
Which some teams and franchises take note.
Please. Genuinely, like our team, the Dallas Cowboys need to shore up the linebackers. We talked about this. We talked about this last week on our virtual show. It'll be in the description. You can check out the channel if you want to watch that. But yeah, there are certain teams that need to learn from what the Ravens are doing.
The Ravens and San Francisco.
Yeah. Right.
No, I mean, the Ravens are just an all-around super impressive team. I don't like it as a Steelers fan. It makes me mad. But what I can say is that Lamar Jackson's playing his best football right now, I feel like. And that defense is scary. Roquan Smith, Kyle Hamilton, the list goes on. There's multiple players. Patrick Queen. I don't want to see them. Even with Marlon Humphrey out, they're terrifying. I don't want to face them. And then they could possibly get Mark Andrews back next week. Possibly.
And that is
I don't want
scary.
that. I don't want that. Then again, I don't like the Chiefs either, but we'll get into that.
And that's so horrifying for anybody, especially NFC teams, right? Because let's be honest, the Ravens are probably going to the Super Bowl, barring, some Mahomes magic, which let's be honest, Mahomes magic could happen.
That's going to be a fun game.
It's going to be so much fun. We'll
really
talk
fun.
about that later, obviously.
Right.
But just the Ravens showed so much, right? But I kind of wanted to pose this question, right? Did the Texans fall flat, or did the Ravens just show how good they really are?
I believe Baltimore showed how good they really are.
Agreed.
They really are that good, and this is what happens in playoff football. Don't get me wrong. I love C.J. Stroud, and I love and respect what Houston is doing down south at I-45. But championship football, I cannot stress it enough. Winning in the trenches on both sides of the ball, great linebacker play, that's where it starts. Good safety play, too. You spoke about Kyle Hamilton.
Beast.
I mean, there it is right there. They really, really took it to Houston, and they showed how good they really are. There is nothing – when the playoffs come, that's when the real is revealed.
Absolutely.
Right.
And no disrespect to Houston, but this is more so about what Baltimore is.
I did want to bring up some stats maybe that kind of says the Texans maybe fell a little flat as well. C.J. Stroud, per Pro Football Reference, had 7 bad throws. Last week he only had 1.
Right.
So he almost doubled his percentage there of just bad throws that he had. He only had 1 drop, so it's not really on his receivers, obviously. Right. But what I did want to say, right, his average yards per attempt, just in the air, was 6.7 yards, as opposed to last week was 9.8. So I kind of want to point to the play calling a little bit as well on Houston's side. That are you getting away from what made you really good in the first place? Because Houston did really well, obviously, throughout the regular season and even last week versus Cleveland, of just airing the ball out and getting obviously you're having great receiver play, but also great quarterback play. And if you don't give him a chance to kind of ball out in that front, how are you going to get away from, what made you really good? Cowboys. Wow.
Talking to you, Dan Quinn.
Yeah, Dan
particularly. But, Austin, he provides a very good point with that. Now, what I will say is some of that may have been due to the fact that they went into a hostile environment.
Yes, very hostile. That environment, you don't want to play in that. In January, December, you don't want to play in that.
That's a scary environment.
And you being a Pittsburgh fan and being the number 1 arch rival to Baltimore,
Oh, it's terrifying. It's bad.
So I think that was part of it. Sure. And then when you go into that hostile environment facing again that front 7, they start getting after you a little bit. They don't just rattle your QB. It sometimes rattles your play caller.
Yeah,
puts you in a spot to where, okay, I don't like this. To that point, they still had a chance because what was it? 13-10 at halftime?
Yeah.
It was
Or was
very
it
close.
10-10?
It was a close game. I know that for
It was
sure.
very close. It was
Yeah.
like 3-3, 10-10, something along the lines of that. It was low scoring in the first half.
I know at one point it was 10-10 after that punt return touchdown.
Right.
And that was at the end of the second quarter.
Yeah.
So
There you go.
Well,
right
a little
around
bit
there.
before, because Baltimore got the ball back and Houston forced the 3 and out.
yeah.
So they had a chance to do something then, but I think Baltimore being at home and coming out in the second half, we saw the halftime adjustments by Harbaugh and his staff, and they were able to put Houston away.
And then also Baltimore ran the ball down their throat. Like it was
True.
200 plus yards rushing. I don't know the exact number, but I know it was like 200, maybe 250 plus. That was insane. And Houston ran it for not even 50, maybe 60. That was it. So like when you're losing the game like already and you can't stop the run, you have no hope, especially not when all Lamar Jackson has to do is make 1 or 2 big throws and they're in the red zone.
Right.
Automatically, and then you're running 5 or 6 yards a pop. Like, no, you can't stop that.
Playoff football.
Yeah.
No matter how much this league changes, no matter how much of a passing league it
Yeah.
becomes, running the football is still playoff football. It
Agreed.
is still the recipe to winning a championship.
Agreed.
Because
Yeah.
if you look at that game as well, Texans offensive line did Devin Singletary no favors. I
Yeah,
mean,
that was bad.
He was getting stopped up like every single time. It was ugly.
That
it
was
was
very
bad.
ugly.
And CJ Stroud as well was pressured 22.9% of the time in that game, as opposed to the week before. Again, Cleveland has a very good defensive front as well, only pressuring 14.3% of the time. That's like a 10% jump.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
They also played Cleveland and Houston.
True.
Not on the road.
That is true.
In Cleveland.
And that is a part of it, but it's still a ferocious front seven regardless.
And so this is where I say Houston, as good of a job that they did this year, this is where the growing pains come in.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
where they have to grow up. Because a veteran-laden team that is mature, the defense will travel.
Absolutely.
Defense and running game, they travel, which explains the Kansas City Buffalo game.
Right.
Yeah.
We're going to get to that, though.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Maybe stop going too fast.
We'll get into that. But I really think that Houston is set up so well next year.
They are.
I mean, as long as Bobby Slowick or somebody doesn't get hired away, because I know some teams are trying to interview him.
Yes.
As long as that team stays remotely, even remotely close to the same, right? That's going to be such a good team. I mean, honestly,
Agreed.
top 3-4 in the league next year
What's
potentially.
scary is they're already good.
Right.
I mean, they got to the playoffs. So, like, you add a couple of big-time players. I mean, you don't even have to make a huge free agent signing, if I'm being honest. Like, I feel like they're just that close.
Right.
Add a couple of, like, depth players. They're right there in the mix. So,
Yeah, but kind of moving on now.